Happy Friday. I am really excited to be interviewing a gorgeous friend of mine and a colleague of mine, Peta April. She is a love coach. She's got a background in psychology. We used to run a lot of workshops together, and we're going to discuss the topic of why are the early stages of dating quite challenging, even though for women who have done a lot of personal development like you and I, it can still bring up a lot of stuff. So over to you, Peta. So great to have you on the call.
Thanks for having me on, Camille. Side note, we've actually known each other for 10 years this year. So I think we should do a special event later on in the year when I come back to Australia.
Absolutely.
But I'm excited to talk about this today. And first of all, I want to just normalize that we all, yourself and I included, which we'll dive in a little bit more into this conversation, all experience this phenomenon of love blindness. Like, even though we have all the information about the relationship at our disposal, we're in it, we're feeling it, it can feel really, really confusing. And often an outside perspective, an independent perspective can see our relationship situation or our dating or our romance better than what we can.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we often have had those conversations ourselves, and it just helps to actually get out of that reactive, triggered space. And on that topic, often it can be not great to talk to other girlfriends about it if they have the same kind of triggers, because even though they mean well, it can get even more confusing to talk to friends. And that's why it's so important to have coaches and really be guided, especially when things are really being triggered in an uncomfortable way. Now, what I wanted to ask you is, why is it that we can get so deeply triggered when we meet someone where there's a strong attraction, a strong maybe emotional connection, and we have a strong sense of self, and we know who we are as women, we have great careers, but this particular topic can still really throw us off in such a big way. Why is that?
Well, first of all, I think most of us have had a pretty painful heartbreak at some point. And so the residue of that heartbreak lives in our subconscious, the pain that we experienced. For most of the ladies listening, they'll know about attachment styles and how sometimes the way that we bond in our early childhood and even our early relationship experiences can have us having this fear of abandonment or fear of getting hurt. We all have these kinds of fears that are under the surface. And of course, when we go about our everyday life, there are risks in other realms of our life, like business, career, finances, all of that sort of thing. But opening ourselves up to love and opening our heart is the most vulnerable, scary, risky thing that we can actually do. The rewards are amazing, obviously, but our subconscious programming, all of that sort of thing comes in to try and keep us safe.
Yes. And we had a chat before talking about that we are really craving safety from a potential partner on some level, even though we've got other needs like freedom and contribution and a lot of other needs as part of our core needs. The need for safety is such a strong need that we have. And as you said, we are trying to protect ourselves from getting hurt as well. I'm happy to share a little bit about where I'm at on my journey. I was married for 16 years. My divorce got finalized a few months ago, and I'm stepping into this dating landscape again myself, and have so much compassion for my clients because I haven't been in this situation for such a long time. It can be confusing and it can be challenging. And we talked earlier about the fact that a lot of women then really trying to use a certain strategy and analyzing the person and why that doesn't work. Do you want to share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, I think it's totally unavoidable that especially the early stages of a relationship, and then depending on what type of partner you have potentially further on into the relationship, there can be uncertainty. And so for those of us who do have some of these fears and doubts and insecurities and abandonment issues and worries about being hurt, we look to get as much reassurance and validation and safety and security from our potential partner. And it's not really possible to get that in the early stages of a relationship because their feelings are still evolving, right? They don't really know. And to push for that can often result in self-sabotaging your relationship because you're pushing him for reassurance that doesn't feel authentic for him to give that yet. And so what we do instead is we try and find certainty or security, or we try and dive into the situation and analyze everything about what's happening, how frequently he's texting, what he's saying, his behaviors. We're picking up on the nuance of every single word in trying to analyze it and arrive at a place where we can feel within ourselves some sense of certainty about how he might be feeling or where he might be at. And loads of things can actually result in us misconstruing things. I think there's part of our intuition that also knows while we're trying to dive in and analyze it, this isn't real evidence of his feelings. So we also then sort of sit in a space where we're like, I'm feeling insecure about it. I'm not sure where I stand. Is this him because he's being inconsistent and I'm actually picking up intuitively that he's not interested? Or is this just all my old stuff and me worrying about getting hurt again? We don't know. Is it me or is it him? And then that creates more confusion as well.
I love that. How can we know which one it is?
Well, that's a really complex question because we can't actually ever be certain, right? Especially because, and you know what, like even if we were actually to ask exactly the right question and he gave us exactly the right answer, there's a part of us that still might not necessarily feel absolutely certain about it. Right. And oftentimes men will maybe not have really checked in with themselves or know themselves an answer. So sometimes they give an answer, especially when you ask men, like, why did we break up? Often they don't even really know the exact answer. They'll give an answer that they feel kind of is plausible and makes sense or that you might understand and take on board. But I think sometimes men need a little bit longer to really connect, most men, not all, to connect their feelings. So I don't know that it's ever possible to have certainty, but definitely this strategy of going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into analyzing everything about the situation, try and unpack and analyze all of our feelings and everything outside of ourselves is not the strategy when we should be leaning back, zooming out and trying to see the relationship or what's happening from a broader perspective rather than the over-analyzing.
Absolutely. And it's not fun. It's not fun to do. And being at the receiving end either, it's not fun for someone to feel that they're constantly being analyzed or watched or measured. But really, the early stages, we are meant to enjoy ourselves and just to also check in, oh, could this person be someone I can see a future with? And am I enjoying my experience here? And it's easier said than done, as we know, because those triggers really kick in. One thing I wanted to mention, which we talked about previous, I think it's really important to keep in mind that it's not the guy's job to make you feel safe completely, because he's also dealing with his own insecurity. And there's so much conflicting dating advice out there with, if he doesn't do that, let him go. If he doesn't do that, he's not the one. And one thing I wanted to mention, with when I first met my ex-husband, actually, he didn't text me back after the first date for 3 days, and all of my girlfriends were like, forget it, he's not interested, just ignore him. And once we did start to continue dating, he just said he didn't want to seem too pushy or too eager. So nothing is black and white. I think it's really important to stay away from black and white dating advice. And it's multifaceted, as we know. We are all human. We've all been hurt before. We all, on most levels, want the same thing. We want deep connection. We want romance. We want passion. We want safety. Men want the same thing. So that's a really important thing to remember.
Yeah, there's a few that relates to as well. And if you talk to your friends, often they'll all share their advice from their own perspective. And some of them will give you the more, nope, he's an asshole, get rid of him, loser, like, go girl, empower you kind of thinking, and then at the other end you'll have a different type of advice from a friend or family member, which is more around, how does that make you feel? I'm sure that's all okay. And they're more so trying to give advice based on what they think will feel best for you,
That's
which is
right.
at the opposite extreme. Neither of which are probably very useful in a way. The feel good advice might be okay in the moment, but you're not getting the reality of the situation. The black and white advice, oftentimes is not an accurate reflection of what's going on either. And so many women are so quick often to cut things off, right?
Correct.
Block, delete, the nervous system, anxiety. I don't like how this is feeling. And they'll just want to wipe their hands of a situation and delete the conversation and block him off just to get rid of the feeling, which is the opposite to what you described, which is wanting to lean into and having all of these conversations, trying to extract words or things to get reassurance from him, which is also a little bit off-putting to most men too.
Yes, absolutely. And it's so important to keep connected to, what do I actually want? What's my vision for a relationship? This is not the only person who can give this to me. I think, including myself, we've all been in a situation when there is a strong connection, there's strong chemistry and a strong emotional connection. We tend to go into a bit of scarcity mindset, thinking, especially women who have been single for a long time or who've come out of a long divorce. I think when there's that person who turns up and gives us that experience that we haven't had for a long time, we can easily give our power away because it feels like it's a rare thing, where that's not necessarily true. Sure, we might not feel chemistry with that many people, but there will be more people in the bigger pool. And that's often, I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, when we start feeling those ungrounded or anxious or nervous feelings coming up, and it's like the way I'm feeling feels stronger than the length of time that I've known this person or the depth of connection that it should be. And our conscious mind knows that, but it's like, but I'm feeling really ungrounded about this. There's so many things going on in the subconscious, but one of the things that we can typically access is, what is the story that I'm telling myself about it? Which relates directly to what you're saying, because often it's a story of, what if I don't meet someone like this again? What if I never have this kind of chemistry? What if? And it's usually around fearing that we might miss out or lose someone that's this important and we might not ever have it again. So we overinflate the importance of it. But yeah, I would just say to the ladies that can relate to this experience, just ask yourself, what am I saying to myself about this, that I have to rush things to a certain point so I can quickly get to a stage where I can get him to say we're exclusive? Or what am I trying to do? How am I trying to control this?
Yes, totally. And I guess with that whole energy of trying to control things, even, there's so many, even like the book, The Rules from many years ago, some women who really follow that kind of very strategic dating advice. Let's say if you're going to follow that kind of strategy, you're not actually going to feel that this connection and this relationship and this love really came to you by being in that more receptive, trusting, feminine energy. So we could get something that we want, but if we don't feel like it would have just come to us without having to play our cards right, it will never quite feel safe anyway.
100%. And when there's a communication issue or there's a break between a communication over text, that's why in most instances, I would recommend to the woman to wait. Yes, she might be able to get confirmation or validation by sending a message out and then he replies. But like you said, then in the back of our mind is always, would he have ever reached out if I didn't? Would he have ever done that if I didn't? So if we're too controlling, we never have that deeper reassurance of his feelings if we don't energetically lean back and allow space for him to show us in his own way.
100%. And I found this is probably the most challenging thing that my clients, including myself, have dealt with, that real allowing space and allowing things to go at a slower pace than what we would maybe like, because it can be very uncomfortable. it can be extremely uncomfortable because I guess we don't totally trust that we can get things by not controlling, by not making things happen. We're not really trusting that that can work as well. Is that the experience you've got with your clients too?
100%. For a lot of us, it is really uncomfortable. And obviously, to take responsibility for that is to be able to manage our own nervous system. And there are lots of different somatic techniques that you can use, breath work, EFT, lots of different things you can use to regulate your nervous system so you do feel more grounded. But most of the women that I work are very intelligent thinking women who do have a tendency to go into that strategy, who do have a tendency to run a lot of stories and do the whole overthinking pattern. What happens is that actually continually reactivates the nervous system dysregulation, right? So that's where I think it is important to be able to have some kind of truth when we're unsure where our truth lies. Is it me? Is it him? Am I misreading this? Is it my fears? Is it my insecurities? My intuition? To have some kind of truth to land on, to be able to set a foundation then to build a realistic understanding of what's happening, along with some good nervous system regulation. And that's what I help my women with. They do need answers. They want some answers. They want to know, what's the truth that I can't see? Explain to me my blind spots. I really do want to know what you think he's thinking and feeling and understand the dynamics of what's going on. Yes. And then I can actually manage soothing myself and having right strategy and trust around that.
Love that. Which leads me into asking about, you do have an amazing special offer at the moment for women who are in some kind of situationship, maybe early stages of dating scenario, maybe it could be a situation where there has been a break and they haven't been able to totally let go, or any kind of romantic challenge. Can you tell us a little bit about?
I haven't done anything like this in more than 10 years, Camille. So I just had this feeling around Love Month. Like you said, everyone is triggered around February. A lot of relationships come under stress over the holidays. We often really analyze what happens on Valentine's Day. We try and assess the depth of his feelings by, did he get an extravagant bunch of flowers? Did I get a card? Is he taking me out for dinner? Like, we make too much meaning out of it and can often cause a lot of confusion. But I just really felt like this is the month where I wanted to create a beautiful offer for those women who feel like they're just suffering some of that confusion, misunderstanding, ungroundedness, anxiousness around, what is this? I feel kind of unsafe. I don't know what's going on. And so the Love Oracle session is a beautiful 90-minute session where we dive into your relationship and then we zoom out from a broader perspective, and I give you a deep understanding of what's going on and exactly what you can do to move through it, to feel grounded and have the certainty and stop the bullshit stories.
Love that.
Yeah, and it's only 100 Australian dollars, so it's crazy. But I feel like it's something that I want to be able to do for the ladies who really need it right now.
Amazing. And we're going to put the link underneath this interview. And I would like to share, I've actually sent the link to one of my dear friends who had a session with you a couple of days ago. And she said it was the best money she had spent in a long time. And I think it's just a really great gift to give to ourselves and really look at it from a different perspective. It's so priceless.
Yeah, also too, for anyone who's listening this far that also has a friend or knows someone who is constantly struggling with, what is he thinking? What is he doing? Where do I stand? Where's the relationship? What should I do now? Oh my God, I sent this text that I shouldn't have sent. What should I say now? If you've got a friend that's like that, the best gift that you can give them. And so I guess I just wanted to say it's possible with the purchase, there's an option to actually print out a gift certificate if anyone wants to offer that as a gift to a friend, because you can also get some value out of that for yourself, having to just say, why don't you speak to someone about it who actually can within 90 minutes get to the truth of what it is. It's really about saving time. It's like every sleepless night, all of the wasted and misdirected time that we spend thinking and overthinking and just feel really out of alignment with the person that we want to be. It's like, why not just get to the bottom of it and sort this out?
I
you
love
know?
that. I love that. And we all have a friend like that, at least one. And it's put a smile on my face because there's a few people that pop to mind for in my own circle. I also had a thought for if there are any men actually listening to this interview. Yes, this is what women actually go through, and we go through this analysis, and we tend to spend a lot of energy on this. There's no judgment there because, as we talked about, love is a beautiful, important part of our lives, and it's a core need, and men have the same needs. It's just they probably wouldn't spend as much time asking their friends or analyzing. What are your thoughts with how men navigate this early stage of dating?
I think it's different for all different types of men. We're all different. Our values, our drivers, our attachment styles are all different. I could probably summarize it as far as different attachment styles of men. Anxious attachment men are probably going to feel the same as us. They're probably going to want to try and get a sense certainty in where do I stand, and an uneasiness about opening their heart up to someone. And same with a fearful avoidance style. A dismissive avoidance style will almost like, you know how we talk about like a glass ceiling or an upper limit sometimes that we reach in other areas of our life. I think dismissive avoidant men almost have like a lower limit. It's almost like a brick floor that it's difficult for them to penetrate, to go down deeper into their heart. They can, and it's possible, but they sort of reach that, oh, this is about as deep as it feels comfortable for me to go. They're not familiar with navigating the deeper realms of their feelings like other sorts of men are. So they sort of hit a wall with it, is probably the best way I could explain it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think it adds to our conversation around understanding the masculine perspective, because again, with a lot of advice, it's not that black and white.
Two pieces of advice I would say for most women is to try not to have too many deep emotional conversations too soon, where if you're honest with yourself, what you're trying to do is fish out some certainty about his feelings. If you're just sharing from yourself without any expectation in return, that's different. But I think often when we're really honest with ourselves, we're trying to connect to get some certainty around his feelings in those deeper conversations. So being mindful of that. The second thing I would actually say is never try and have a what are we or extracting his feelings or have emotional conversations over text. They always go pear-shaped. I've got more than one post about this on my Instagram. I have really strong feelings having deeper, more important conversations over text. It's just a hard no for me. The last thing I'd like to say about having that conversation in person is also being mindful that as emotional women, we might be more in tuned. It's probably been really present for us for some time, our feelings about the whole thing. When you're in a conversation with a man about it, it's really important to give him a lot of space, right? If you ask a question, it requires him to connect into his true feelings about it. It could take him a minute or 2 or 3 minutes to actually really go in and be able to come up with a truthful answer. And most women don't allow enough silence or enough space for men to be able to do that. Right? If he doesn't say anything in 30 seconds, we'll often go, but well, is it this or is it this? We'll try and fill in the space. And I would say, be mindful, be willing to just be patient so that you allow him time to connect to his feelings, and then figure out the right way that he wants to then share that with you or frame that in words. And that takes way longer than what we imagine it would.
Yes. And that's where it's so important to get support, because those early stages of dating is often when a lot of women tend to sabotage a potentially really great relationship. And by having someone like you on board, where there's that support and advice from a different perspective, it can really help. And with regulating the nervous system as well, it can really help to then stay present, stay empowered, and to stay open to something that could be a beautiful long-term relationship.
Or re-engage with someone that you might have had a good connection with, but it's been sabotaged. I have a lot of women come back and speak to me about that. And we figure out a way to, how do we go about reconnecting without losing your power, without losing your sense of.
I love that. Yes, because again, things change all the time. Nothing's black and white. So if there was a really deep connection, there often might be an opportunity to reconnect, as long as the foundations are going to be different this time around. So lots of women will resonate to what we talked about. So thanks so much for your time, Peter.
Thanks for having me.
The link underneath. Also, if any of you who are listening have any specific questions that you would like us to discuss, I'm going to post a lot of content on YouTube, and we will do regular interviews. Please let us know, and we're happy to answer any questions in future interviews and future videos as well. Thanks so much.